I swear I wasn't trying to stare. It just happened. The way light clung to her. How the edge of her voice carried more calm than anyone I knew. She was standing by the kitchen window, the last of the afternoon sun sliding over her hair, turning the air gold around her. My girlfriend's sister, Clara, mid-40s, graceful without trying. Everything about her moved slower, more certain, like time bent slightly to her rhythm. I was 24, still learning how to hold eye contact without fumbling for words. But she looked at me differently. Not with curiosity or judgment. Something gentler, but sharper too. Like she saw through every small performance I didn't realize I was giving. The first time I met her, she'd smiled and said, "You're quieter than I expected." I'd said, "I talk more when it matters." And she just nodded. A small curve at the corner of her lips that I kept seeing in my head for days. Now, weeks later, I was back in the same house. My girlfriend upstairs on a video call, and Clara moving slowly through the kitchen, making tea. She didn't need to look up to know I was watching. "Still quiet," she said softly. I smiled, leaning against the counter. "You still notice." She turned, one hand resting on the edge of the counter, the other holding the kettle. "You make it easy to notice." Something in her tone, not flirtatious exactly, but too deliberate to be casual, landed somewhere low in my chest. The air between us felt different now. There wasn't a sound besides the faint hiss of water heating and the small hum of the refrigerator. Her hand brushed mine when she reached for a spoon. Just a touch, barely there. But it lingered, like static that refused to fade. She didn't apologize, didn't pull back. Neither did I. "You've got that look again," she said after a moment. "What look?" "That one. Like you're trying to memorize something." I didn't know what to say to that. Maybe because she was right. I was trying to memorize her. The way she tilted her head when she spoke, the quiet confidence in her posture, even the fine lines around her eyes that only showed when she smiled. "I like the way you move," I said before I could stop myself. Her eyebrows lifted. Not offended, not surprised, just aware. She stirred her tea slowly, gaze lowered, then looked back up. "You shouldn't say that," she murmured. "Probably not," I admitted. "But it's true." For a few seconds, neither of us moved. The tension wasn't dramatic. It was quieter, woven through our breaths and half-smiles. The kind that doesn't need words to exist. She walked past me toward the living room, her perfume brushing the air between us. Something about the moment, how near she was, how deliberate her steps were, made it impossible to look away. When she sat on the couch, she didn't invite me over. But she also didn't tell me to stay where I was. I did anyway. I stayed, hands in pockets, heart trying to sound normal. She picked up a book, opened it halfway, then closed it again. "Do you ever stop thinking so loudly?" she asked, not looking at me. "Not around you," I said quietly. That was the first time she really smiled, small, almost sad. Then the sound of footsteps came from upstairs. Her smile vanished as quickly as it appeared. "Your girlfriend's coming," she whispered, setting her cup down. Her voice was steady, but her fingers weren't. I turned toward the stairs. The creak of a door. Laughter. And when I looked back, Clara was closer now, standing just a breath away. Her eyes found mine. Her lips parted as if to speak. But before she could, a voice called from above. "Hey, you down there?" Clara exhaled, barely audible. Then, under her breath, almost a whisper meant only for me, "Careful, you're easy to read." And she stepped away, just as the footsteps reached the landing. It's strange how quickly the air between two people can change. A week ago, Clara had been a quiet presence in the background of family dinners. Polite, measured, never crossing lines. Now, every time I saw her, something beneath that calm was shifting. My girlfriend had gone out of town for a few days. I'd stayed behind to finish a project, and Clara, conveniently or not, was still around. The house felt too big for just the two of us. Too quiet, like it was listening. That evening, I found her in the small study, sorting through a box of old photographs. She didn't hear me come in at first. Her glasses slid down her nose as she leaned over the table, a strand of hair brushing her cheek. She looked tired, maybe. Not from the day, from years. You kept all these? I asked. She turned, startled for half a second, then smiled faintly. Most people throw away pieces of their life when they start over. I just collect them instead. There was something in her voice, not regret exactly, but recognition. I walked closer, picking up a faded picture of her and a man beside a car. He had his arm around her shoulders, but she wasn't looking at him. She was looking at something off camera. Your husband? I asked quietly. Was, she corrected. Divorced 8 years now. He liked being adored, not known. I set the photo down. And now, she laughed softly. Now I drink too much tea and pretend I don't miss being touched. The words hung between us longer than they should have. She didn't look embarrassed saying them. Just honest, maybe too honest. I wanted to look away, but couldn't. Sorry, she said finally, shaking her head. That was human, I interrupted. Her eyes lifted to mine. A small pause, a long one. You're too young to understand that kind of loneliness, she said. Maybe, I said, but I notice it. Her breath caught, almost imperceptibly, before she turned back to the box. I could feel the heat of her shoulder near mine, the faint brush of fabric each time she moved. My pulse betrayed me, too loud in my ears. I shouldn't let you stay here, she murmured, half to herself. Then tell me to go. She didn't. The clock ticked. The air grew thicker. When she finally reached for another photo, her fingers grazed my wrist. Light, accidental, but not innocent. She didn't pull away. Neither did I. For a moment, the world shrank to the warmth of her skin against mine. Her perfume was faint, jasmine, tea, something older. I could feel her breath when she finally spoke. Do you ever think about what people would say? She whispered. All the time, I said. Then I stopped caring for a few seconds. Her hand slipped away, but too slowly. She looked down, eyes soft but guarded again. You shouldn't make it this easy to fall into something wrong. I almost said maybe it doesn't feel wrong, but didn't. The words stayed in my throat, heavy and hot. Instead, I stepped closer, not enough to touch her, just enough for her to feel it. She didn't move, didn't speak, just looked at me, the kind of look that holds too much memory, too much danger. And then, for the first time, she smiled without sadness. Small, real, fragile. The kind of smile that tells you it's already too late. The next evening, the rain came early, soft at first, then relentless. The kind that makes everything quieter, more intimate. My girlfriend had called to say she'd be home late. Her voice on speakerphone filled the kitchen while Clara stirred soup on the stove. I stood nearby, pretending to text, but mostly just watching the small movements of her hands. The steam blurred her face, and in that haze, she seemed almost untouchable. When the call ended, silence replaced it, that fragile, loaded kind that feels like standing too close to a secret. She'll be home tomorrow, Clara said without turning around. I nodded, unsure if that was relief or warning. You want help with that? Her voice softened. You'll burn your fingers. I'll risk it. I reached for the spoon in her hand, and she didn't let go. The handle rested between both our palms, heat trapped where our skin met. Neither of us looked up. A drop of soup hissed as it hit the burner. She exhaled, barely. You shouldn't make things harder than they already are. I'm not sure which of us is doing that, I said quietly. Finally, she looked at me. Eyes sharp, tired, wanting. For a heartbeat, the room felt smaller. I could hear her breathing. I could see the faint tremor in her hand before she set the spoon down. You remind me what it felt like to be wanted, she said almost to herself. Before I could answer, a knock came from the door. Sudden, loud, breaking everything. We froze. My pulse spiked. Clara wiped her hands, voice low. Don't move. It was a neighbor asking about a power outage. I heard her steady voice at the doorway, calm, unbothered. The perfect older sister again. By the time she came back, I was leaning against the counter, pretending to scroll through my phone. She closed the door gently. You look guilty. Do I? She stepped closer, searching my face. You should. Her tone should have cooled the air, but it didn't. The space between us was thick again. I could smell rain on her skin, that faint trace of tea and something deeper. Her eyes flicked to my lips, then away. A small, unsteady laugh escaped her. This can't happen, she whispered. Then why are you still here? The question landed heavy. She didn't answer. Instead, she reached past me for a towel, her hand brushing my chest. Too light, too intentional. My breath caught. She froze. Seconds stretched. Neither of us moved. She started, but didn't finish. Her words died in the air as thunder rolled outside. I could see it in her, the war between wanting and running. The same one in me. Then, without thinking, I stepped forward. Not touching, not yet. Just close enough for her to feel the heat of it. Her breath hitched. You need to leave this room, she whispered. I know, I said. Neither of us moved. And when she finally did, turning, brushing past me to put space between us. Her fingers lingered just long enough against mine to undo every bit of restraint we had left. The rain outside deepened, and so did the silence. By the fourth night, I'd stopped pretending the visits were coincidence. I kept finding reasons to stay, helping with dinner, fixing the Wi-Fi, keeping her company until my girlfriend got back. Lies that sounded small enough to excuse. Clara didn't ask me to leave. She didn't ask me to stay either. That evening, the storm had passed, but the air was heavy with the scent of wet earth and jasmine. The lights flickered now and then. We sat in the living room, a soft hum of an old record playing. Something slow, sad, older than both of us. She was on the couch, barefoot, legs tucked beneath her. I was sitting on the floor by the coffee table, pretending to scroll through my laptop, though I hadn't typed a word in minutes. Her voice broke the quiet. You really shouldn't look at me that way. I looked up. What way is that? The way men look when they've already decided something. Her tone was gentle, but her fingers were tense against the rim of her teacup. I watched a droplet of tea slide down the porcelain and fall onto her knee. She didn't seem to notice. Maybe I already have, I said softly. She sighed, not angry, not even surprised. Just tired of resisting something that kept circling back. You're 24, she murmured. You don't know what this could ruin. I know exactly what it could ruin. I rose to my feet, standing near her. And I still came here. She looked up at me, eyes catching the dim light. For a heartbeat, she didn't breathe. I saw it, the shift. The part of her that had been careful too long finally cracking. Don't, she whispered. But her body didn't move away when I sat beside her. The space between us was nothing now. Her perfume lingered, subtle and warm. My hand brushed against her hair, tucking a strand behind her ear. The texture of it, soft, familiar, sent a shiver down my arm. She exhaled slowly. You shouldn't touch me like that. Then tell me to stop. Silence. Her eyes flicked down to my hand, still hovering near her face. Then she leaned forward, just slightly, her shoulder grazing mine. The contact was small but catastrophic. I could hear her heartbeat, or maybe it was mine. Every sound in the room dimmed. I don't want to hurt her, Clara said, her voice breaking. I've already done enough damage in my life. You're not hurting anyone right now, I whispered back. She looked at me then, really looked. All the restraint, all the quiet dignity she'd held on to, melted in her eyes. Don't make me want this, she said, but her voice betrayed her. I'm not making you, I said. You already do. Her breath trembled. She reached out, fingertips brushing my jaw, tracing the edge of my face as if she was memorizing it. My hand found her wrist, holding it there. The record crackled in the background. Time slowed. We were close enough now that I could feel the warmth of her breath against my mouth. The kind of closeness that erased every excuse, every boundary. Then, a phone buzzed on the coffee table. Loud, shattering. Her body jolted back as if burned. She fumbled for the phone. The screen lit up with my girlfriend's name. Neither of us spoke. Her hand hovered over the phone, shaking. Then she whispered, barely audible, "This can't go further, but I don't want you to go." The call kept ringing, and we just sat there, breathing the same air, too close, too aware, waiting for the sound to stop. The next morning, the air felt different, thinner, uncertain. The rain had stopped, but the world outside still looked washed out, pale. Clara stood by the window with her coffee, sleeves rolled up, hair loosely tied. She didn't glance at me when I entered the kitchen, though she must have heard me. Neither of us mentioned the night before, the closeness, the phone call, the almost. But silence, in its own way, remembers. I leaned against the counter. "You didn't answer her call." She sipped her coffee. "I know." There was something cold in her voice, or maybe it was the effort to sound cold. "She texted me later," I said, watching her reaction. "She asked if we'd had dinner together." Clara turned then, eyes sharp. "And what did you tell her?" "That I'd eaten alone." She studied me, searching for something beneath my words. "You're getting good at lying," she said quietly. I didn't answer. The truth was, lying didn't feel wrong when it meant keeping this small, impossible thing between us alive for one more day. Her hand trembled slightly as she set the cup down. "She called me too," she said after a pause. "Last night after you left the room." My chest tightened. "What did she say?" "That she knows." The words landed like glass shattering. My pulse stuttered. "Knows what exactly?" Clara's lips pressed together. "She said she could feel something. That you've been distant. That I've been—" She stopped, eyes closing for a second. "She asked if I've been avoiding her because of you." I stepped closer. "What did you tell her?" "That she was imagining it." Clara's voice cracked. "Just once, but it was enough. And she believed me. For now." The air between us thickened again. This time, not just with want, but fear. "She'll notice more," I said. "I know." Her hands were shaking slightly, though she tried to hide it by crossing her arms. I reached out, brushing my fingers over her wrist, steadying it. She didn't pull away. "This is my fault," I murmured. "No," she said, eyes lifting to mine. "It's mine. I should have stopped this before it started. But you didn't. Because I didn't want to." Her confession was barely a whisper, but it stripped every pretense left between us. The air seemed to hum. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The world outside kept its distance. Birds, wind, faint car sounds. Everything ordinary, except us. When I finally spoke, my voice was low. "What do we do now?" Clara stepped back, brushing past me to put space between us. But her hand grazed mine as she passed. A small, involuntary touch that said everything her words couldn't. "We stop," she said, but her voice betrayed her. Then quieter. "Before she asks again." I turned toward her. "Can you?" She didn't answer. Her eyes met mine, wide, uncertain, almost desperate. And then, instead of leaving, she reached for my arm. Just a second. Just enough to say what she couldn't. "I don't know anymore," she whispered. And that was the moment I realized it wasn't about stopping anymore. It was about surviving whatever came next. That night, the house felt too quiet again. The kind of quiet that magnifies every breath, every creak in the floorboards. I was supposed to be packing. My girlfriend would be back by morning, but I couldn't leave. Clara was in the living room, barefoot, sitting on the edge of the couch, staring at nothing. A single lamp lit the space, its glow brushing her shoulders in amber light. She didn't look up when I stepped closer. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly. "I know." "Then why are you?" "I thought you'd want to see me one more time." Her laugh was quiet, but there was no amusement in it. "You think I haven't been seeing you? Every time I close my eyes, you're still there." She turned finally, eyes tired, lips trembling slightly. There was no distance left to hide behind. "I told myself I could handle this," she whispered, "that it was harmless. Just curiosity." "It's not harmless," I said. "And it's not curiosity." Her eyes locked on mine. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was charged, trembling. The air felt heavier, thick enough to touch. She stood up slowly, closing the space between us until I could feel the heat of her body. My chest tightened. My hands stayed at my sides, as if any movement would tip the moment into something neither of us could undo. "You make me feel alive again," she said, voice breaking slightly. "And I hate you for it." I stepped closer, our breath mingling. "Then hate me. But don't lie." Her hand rose, tentative, trembling, and brushed against my face. The touch was light, reverent almost, like she was memorizing something she knew she couldn't keep. For a second, everything in me screamed to close that final inch between us, to stop fighting what had already happened inside us. But then she spoke, her voice no louder than a breath. "If we cross this line, we can't go back." "Maybe we're already across," I said. Her fingers tightened slightly on my jaw, then dropped. The weight of her restraint hit harder than any touch could have. She stepped back, blinking quickly, swallowing hard. "She doesn't deserve that," she whispered. "Not from me. Not from you." I nodded, though it felt like agreeing to my own undoing. We stood there, both caught in the gravity of something too big to name. Finally, she exhaled. "I want to kiss you," she admitted. "And that's exactly why I won't." Her honesty cut clean through the noise. I reached for her hand anyway, just once, holding it between both of mine. No words, just warmth, the pulse beneath her skin, the quiet understanding that this was both ending and beginning at once. She looked up, eyes shining, and whispered, "Now you know." And I did. I knew everything, her guilt, her longing, the quiet ache she'd hidden behind every careful smile. Then she pulled her hand away, slowly, gently, as if peeling away from a dream that couldn't survive daylight. "Go," she said, and I did. But even as the door closed behind me, her voice, low, steady, breaking, followed me into the night. It had been weeks since that night. The night of her whisper, the near kiss, the goodbye that didn't feel like one. I told myself distance would make things right, that time would flatten whatever had lived between us. But time didn't heal it. It just taught me to hide it better. My girlfriend and I broke up soon after. Nothing explosive, just the slow unraveling of something that had already lost its pulse. She said I'd grown distant. She wasn't wrong. I didn't see Clara again until late spring. It was at a cafe near the old bookstore, the kind of place where the air always smelled faintly of cinnamon and old paper. She was standing at the counter, hair a little shorter, wearing a linen dress that made her look effortlessly out of place among the noise. For a moment I froze. Then she turned and our eyes met. She didn't look surprised, just calm. The kind of calm that comes after deciding not to run anymore. "Hi," she said, voice soft but sure. I smiled. "Hi." There was a small pause. Then she gestured to her table by the window. "You have time." I did. I always would, for her. We sat together, a quiet that wasn't heavy this time, just full. She stirred her coffee. I watched the way her fingers circled the spoon, remembering how those same fingers once trembled near mine. "How have you been?" I asked. "Better," she said. "Lonelier, maybe, but better." I nodded. "You look different." "So do you." Her smile deepened slightly. "Less haunted." The light caught her face in that moment. Gentle, forgiving. We talked for a while about ordinary things. Work, books, her garden. But beneath every word, there was something else. Not guilt anymore. Not tension. Just understanding. When she reached for her bag to leave, I stood too. For a moment, neither of us knew how to end it. "Can I walk you out?" I asked. She hesitated, then nodded. Outside, the afternoon sun was soft, the kind of warmth that asks nothing in return. We stood by her car. She turned toward me, close enough that I could feel the quiet between our breaths again. "I think about you," she said simply. Not with regret, just with something I don't know how to name. I stepped closer, my hand finding hers. She didn't pull away this time. "Maybe we don't need to name it," I said. Her fingers tightened around mine. For a second, It was like every moment we'd fought, every silence, every restraint had been leading here. Not to something forbidden, but something true. She leaned in, not for a kiss, but to rest her forehead against mine. The contact was tender, grounding. Her breath trembled, but she smiled through it. Maybe this, she whispered, was always where it was supposed to end. I closed my eyes, memorizing the weight of her closeness, the warmth of her hand in mine. And when we finally stepped apart, it wasn't loss I felt. It was peace. She walked away slowly, sunlight glinting off her hair. I didn't call after her. I didn't need to. We'd said everything we ever could, not in words, but in everything that came after silence. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?